Hey everybody, it's Nikki again, and I am here to continue with my comparison from yesterday because although I brought my bowl of coffee, I did fall asleep. It was a long comparison and it was late. No medical advice here. This is all personal opinion, personal experience. As I said in the other four, I think I'm on part 5 today, 4 parts, heavy opinion. But that's, of course, that's what it is. It's a comparison based on my experience, so there is going to be a lot of opinion. And this is the Tandem T-Slim X2 with Basal-IQ and Minimed 670G manual mode, Smart Guard with low management features comparison. Those are the full names of the two algorithms, I guess, the 2 pumps. Here comes my cat again. Just gonna make it pass through one more time and sit right in front of the camera, but that's okay. All right, so that's Katina. She's guest appearing today. All right, anyway, so in part 4, I did do overrides, and I did get almost the entire way through it. I got all the good stuff. Basically, that T-Slim is a lot more flexible and that you can override suspends and jump back in and do insulin and then have it suspend you again. So there's really no repercussion for overriding a T-Slim suspend. Manual mode, there's a lot more rules, and they do kind of reprimand you for overriding, where you will definitely lose it for you'll lose the suspend feature for at least 30 minutes and up to 4 hours, depending on a very complex set of rules. But the point is that there is no flexibility. So if you do want to do insulin, you have to override and then you have to drop the suspend feature. The thing I forgot to mention, I kind of cut out early on my video. Things were happening in my house. The thing I did not mention before cutting out was both pumps, upon reaching the 2 hour limit, the 2 hour suspend limit, both pumps give you 30-minute disabled suspend feature. So that is the case where the T-Slim suspend feature can be disabled, unavailable. Okay. So that's that. So today is loss of sensor value, drop signals, interference, and required calibration. So basically what I'm looking at is what happens when your sensor is no longer providing a value. And this could be either temporarily or permanently. And it's interesting here because the 2 pumps handle this differently. Almost polar opposite, probably polar opposite. Okay, so we'll start with the 670G. In the manual mode's case, the loss of a sensor reading, the SG, can happen for a few reasons. Mainly it's when the calibration is due or as a result of a drop signal or interference. And those might be one and the same, but I'm not sure they are. I think sometimes regardless. Okay. So anyway, so what we're really looking at is what happens when your SG has no value. There is no SG. In manual mode, there are 2 calibrations required per day. They are every 12 hours in manual mode. And this is guaranteed. So you're at least twice a day, you're going to be required to calibrate. With manual mode, with the 670G, if you lose your SG, if you no longer have a sensor value because you're late on your calibration, it means you lose the pump's ability to suspend. Now this only happens if you are not already suspended. Excuse me. This is what I think is really interesting about it. Basically, it freezes you wherever you are. So if you are currently receiving insulin, if you are not in a suspend status, then you will continue. Then you cannot be suspended until you provided a value. If you are already in a suspend and you lose your sensor value, you lose your SG, then you are stuck in that suspend until one of 2 things: until either you calibrate or until you reach your 2 hour limit. So that was another one of the things I wasn't crazy about. I did not like the idea of my pump continuing to keep my insulin suspended because I didn't give it a value. It's just not a great design. And especially for up to 2 hours. I mean, 2 hours for me with no insulin is got a great impact on my blood sugar. So this is all because I didn't give it a value. I'm not a big fan. Okay, so on the flip, and this is also true for a drop signal or interference. Okay, so basically, as long as you lose your SG, you're locked into whatever you're locked into until you give it a value or until you until you reach your limit. Okay, on the T-Slim, a required calibration is a relatively rare occurrence as long as you have put in a code when you start up your new sensor. So I've been wearing the T-Slim I've been wearing the Dexcom since approximately December, I think, of 2018. So I'm going on about 8 months, 9 months, whatever it's been. I've had one time that my pump has required, and I'm going to say this, required a calibration, but it wasn't really a required calibration. It was more of a suggested calibration. This was during a time I had a sensor where I had put in the code, and I can't even remember why it had happened, but it's probably on about day 7 of the sensor or whatever it was. And basically out of the blue, it said it was requiring that I calibrate. I was nowhere near my meter. It was about an hour before I was able to calibrate. Again, with the 670G, that sensor value would have been gone, right? So nothing would have been happening with my pump. But when I finally sat down to get it done and I looked down, I realized that the required calibration had cleared itself, and Basal-IQ had continued to act the entire time. So first of all, there are really not very many required calibrations as long as you put in a code. And second of all, required isn't even really a good, accurate word for it, because they can clear themselves, and maybe always do, I'm not sure. When you have not put in a code, if you've chosen no code when you're starting up a new sensor, that's a different story. And then there are 2 required calibrations per day. I'm actually trying that out today to see what happens when I put in no code. And I'm trying it today because I haven't done it yet. So I do not know what happens if a required calibration comes up during a sensor that you've put in no code for. Maybe it will, lock you into whatever. I'm not sure yet, so I'll check that out. But I do think that in most cases, people are putting in a code. And if you're not in the habit of putting in a code, I would highly recommend it. Okay. For drop signals, as long as they are resolved in under 15 minutes, Basal-IQ is not affected. So basically, it's something of 3 of the last 4. There have to be 3 of the last 4 values in order for it to keep running. If it goes beyond that, then it'll drop your Basal-IQ. And then again, it will resume as soon as it picks back up the signal again. Even though I have to say that, I will say most of my drop signals are resolved within 15 minutes. So I rarely lose Basal-IQ as a result of a drop signal until I'm down towards the last couple of days of an extended sensor. Once I start getting into day 14, 15 territory, sometimes I get longer drop signals. Okay, this is giving me messages. I don't know what they're saying. Okay, anyway, so that is what happens when you lose a value in 8.5 minutes. When I get this done, okay, so I'm gonna come back for another video, part 6, and I'm gonna talk about when and how they resume basal, and then a few kind of random thoughts, and then some numbers. I've observed Basal-IQ, and I've done something of a post hoc analysis with the 670G, and that is because I was unable to wear the 670G in order to do an equal comparison because my transmitter died, and Medtronic won't replace it anymore. Can't blame them. Time's up, but luckily I did have plenty of data to take a look at, so I could discuss those numbers. And I'm re-upping on this, so I'll be back for part 6. Thanks for watching. Bye.